will take my leave.
All right, you have a scheduled call, we understand. So, next we have on the agenda here for this notice, a special community improvement meeting, which I assume is a Community Improvement Corporation meeting, the CIC, as noticed. And I think you are the chairman of the CIC, aren't you?
Yes, I am.
Well, you could chair this surprise meeting.
Okay, now, the time is
Oh, wait, I'm sorry. Did I note we were adjourned at 4:16 p.m.? Sorry.
4:16 p.m. We are now entering into a meeting for the CIC, a CIC meeting, special meeting, now called to order. And we have already approved the last minutes of the past meeting. So this meeting is to...
Well, who requested this meeting?
Yeah, what?
I did. Go ahead, you're the chair.
Go ahead.
Yeah, so what I wanted to talk about at this meeting is that, as you know, we have a policy through the CIC of issuing grants to those people who work in the joint economic development zones and have 0.75% withhold, and they live in Sycamore Township and have 0.75% of their earnings tax withheld from their paycheck. We issue grants to them when they apply, prove that they were a resident for the year. We issue them grants in the amount of the money that was withheld. And when at the inception of the CIC, we had great discussion about the fact that we were going to adopt our partners' tax rules as it relates to refunds, which extend 3 years with all of our partners. In fact, I think, as I mentioned in the last meeting, it's actually statutory. While I clearly understand that the CIC is not a joint economic development zone and does not fall within that parameter, that's one of the reasons why we had multiple discussions about it when we first organized and developed the CIC. Debbie has been following those same rules since its inception. She's had multiple people come to us and say they wanted to apply for grants past the 3-year period, and she told them, no, we can't do that. And so now, in the last 2 weeks or 3 weeks or wherever, in the short time frame prior to today, we had 2 different people come in. One wanted grants issued for 7 years, and one wanted grants issued for 6 years. And what I'm being told is Mr. Warwick had instructed Debbie to pay those based on a conversation I believe he had with Mr. Desai. And I find that to be extremely troublesome. I do understand, I had a conversation with Mr. Desai last night, I do clearly understand that the original CIC resolution says any versus 3 years. I get that, I totally understand that. That needs to be amended immediately. We did, with our new CIC, we did actually do that with our CIC for 2022. We did actually do that, I believe, and added 3 years to the language. We should amend, number one, we should amend the original. Number two, what I want to know is we have a CIC board in place, and that CIC board should be addressing those issues. Who has the unilateral authority to just go in and tell Debbie to write checks out of the township money to people when they make a request that's outside the parameters of which we originally agreed to pay those, to issue those grants? Nobody, for the record, let me tell you that nobody in this building has the unilateral authority to just say, pay those checks. We have a CIC board in place that is supposed to hear that. And I can't, for the life of me, can't figure out who thinks that this was a good idea. I don't know. But we pay Mr. Desai to advise the board, not to vote on behalf of the board. And so I'm extremely troubled by the fact that Sycamore Township is sending out CIC grant checks to people before the board has the ability to even weigh in on this subject. And so that's why I brought this to attention. Unfortunately, we don't have Mr. Desai here. He left. He had a more important client or something, but I'm really troubled by the fact that Mr. Desai felt he had the authority to make unilateral decisions about sending out checks when nothing came in front of the board. In fact, for the record, everyone should know this, I didn't even know that it was happening until, as a member of the CIC board and also as a member of the Board of Trustees, I had no idea this was happening until I went in to sign checks and found an application for a grant with 2021 scratched out in 2017 written in its place. I said, Debbie, what is this? 2017, what is this? I was told to pay it. Well, don't pay it until we have a conversation with at least the board's got to hear about this and be able to make a rational decision, and no one has the authority to just tell her to pay it. Unfortunately, I think the other ones were already paid. So that's how it came to my attention. That is really unfortunate, that as a member of the Board of Trustees, and I don't know if you two knew about it or you didn't know about it, but as a member of the Board of Trustees and as a member of the Board of the CIC, I'm only finding out about that when I got to sign a check. That's pretty bad policy. That's pretty bad application of the rules around here. And so I needed to bring this out into everyone's attention because I think we need to address it. I think we have 4 members of the CIC board here. So I think it definitely needs to be addressed.
I think we have 5, don't we?
We actually have 5.
May I speak, Mr. Chairman?
You may-
Thank you.
Yes.
All right. Those are some interesting points. First of all, though, Mr. Desai, I understand, called you last night after learning about this surprise meeting and told you that he had a conference at 4:15 he had to attend, he couldn't get out of, and asked if this could be rescheduled, didn't he?
No, he did say that he had a conference, that's correct. And I don't know who it's with, it's none of my business. It's his business.
Right, but he asked you to reschedule this meeting at a time where he could actually appear and explain these things, didn't he?
He didn't actually ask me to reschedule it, no, he didn't.
Okay.
So you're wrong on that.
He indicated to me that he
Well,
had
that's
asked you that,
incorrect.
so, okay.
That's incorrect.
All right, well, anyway, so we can have that discussion when he's here. It is unfortunate you didn't know about that until you saw that check, because yes, you should have known about that as a trustee and as a board member. The CIC and the Board of Trustees and each of the JED's boards are legally distinct entities, I will point out, but you are members of each of them, so certainly you should know about these things. I've gone back and looked through all the motions and resolutions and minutes of the CIC, and whatever discussions did occur back then, and I don't doubt that these discussions happened, they are not documented in any of those things with 2 exceptions. But until Tuesday of this week, the board had never passed a time limit on CIC grant applications, and they are not subject to the tax code because they are grants. And each of the resolutions that approved them on behalf of the CIC indicated each time that the grant program would provide grant awards in the amount of taxes paid in through the JEDs by residents who worked within the JEDs.
I clearly acknowledge that.
Yeah, there was never a time limit set. That should have happened, and it was contemplated, and I can tell you that because looking back through those minutes, I see in the April 21st, 2016 meeting, there was a discussion where, a couple things. Mr. Bickford, who was the executive director at the time, said he was in the process of preparing an operational statement and plan as required by Ohio Revised Code 1724.10. And he said a draft would be available at the next CIC meeting. That apparently didn't happen because there's never a mention of it again in the minutes, or if it did happen, it was not recorded or adopted. He also said as to the grant program that he suggested then on April 21st, 2016, that the board establish a time limit for the grant program. He noted that another township had a particular limit, and then you, Mr. Weedman, suggested that the program go back actually 2 years, not 3, according to the minutes, and that it would need to be applied for by December 31st of the grant year. The minutes note that Mr. Bishop made a motion to accept the new rules, all voted yes, and then Mr. Miller, Doug Miller, Township Law Director at the time, stated that new rules would be presented for consideration and formal adoption at the next meeting. Apparently, that never happened, because the minutes from the next meeting don't mention any of those things happening, and there's no resolution ever adopting any of that. Instead, there were annual resolutions setting meeting dates and annual resolutions adopting a grant program each year, never with a time limit, and always fully guaranteeing that a resident could seek a refund for the amounts they paid into taxes with no time limit. The resolutions did also note that the executive director, who was Mr. Bickford, up until the point Mr. Warwick took over for that, had authority to set the procedures for application and various rules related to that. But from what I understand, none of the applications ever stated a time limit either. I agree with you, there needs to be a time limit, and we have now set one, thank goodness. I don't know if we can go back and retroactively change the prior years, but I don't know that we need to, because the way I understand it, it's a rolling grant program. So people who apply, I guess for 2021, we could still set one before somebody comes in before the end of the year, but otherwise, people who applied next year for tax refunds from the prior year or the prior 2 years or prior 3 years are being paid out of the 2022 grant program anyway, aren't they?
That's correct.
So it's that funding that matters. So it's really now and moving forward that we need to attend to this. But for
And
what, for.
I did acknowledge that exactly what you said.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah,
not,
thank you.
it was not put in. I think we need to make sure
Right.
that it is in. I had talked to Mr. Desai about possibly amending the original. He thought it was a good idea, and
I'll defer to him on that.
I totally,
Yeah.
I'm not disagreeing with anything you're saying. All I'm saying is, the process here is bad. It's a bad process.
I agree.
And I
It's
wanted
done
to
that
bring
way a
this
long
out
time.
in the open because, as we all know, transparency is important here, and I know some people like transparency only when it's convenient, but I like it all the time. And so.
Me too, I think we
so-
all do. But you
so
were
I-
suggesting that someone had authorized deviating from the procedures the board had put in place in the past. And
Yeah.
actually, they weren't deviating from the
That's correct.
procedures that were ever set. The procedures were unfortunately fuzzy and nebulous. So now we're fixing that going forward. I recognize in the past it's been fuzzy. Let's focus on the future and get it done right. I think that's something we can all.
I want to
agree on.
focus also on fixing the bad policy we have.
Sure,
You know,
and that's what we're doing now, right?
The bad policy of who has authority and who doesn't have authority to make decisions on
Yeah.
behalf of the board.
Yeah.
We have a statutory board in place that's supposed to be handling all this, and here we have somebody unilaterally just saying, oh, let's just send them a check. You just send them a
We
check.
also had a grant program that guaranteed a refund to a resident who put in an application.
Still needs to
with
come
no
in front of the
time limit.
board, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Still,
probably-
it's a discrepancy in the policy, and it needs to come in
Yeah.
front of the board.
I don't disagree.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
my point here
Yeah,
today.
but if someone had sued over it, if we denied it, I think we would have lost as the rules.
We
said
have,
that.
for the record, we
Yeah.
have other people who have come in and asked for it, and we've told them, no, 3 years is the limit.
Yeah, and thank goodness they didn't sue us.
So, I mean,
Yeah. Yeah, hey, I'm all for fixing it, so, yeah. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Is there any action to take right now? I think we do need to hear from Mr. Desai as to anything further. He's probably going to tell you what I told you here, because I think he's probably seen these same things, and I can tell you, he and I had a discussion about this at some point, about the need to put in the time limit that we put in this past Tuesday in our 2022 program.
Now, looking back, we are going to pay the people the checks that were, the last 2 checks that you didn't want to sign, we're going to pay those people, that person, 2 people.
I think there was just one check.
One check?
Yeah.
Okay, but that's
I think
what-
the other people, I think, I don't know, Ray can speak to this, I'm assuming, but I think the other people were already paid.
Okay, so.
I did not see, if they were, I did not see the checks. So somebody else signed them.
I think there was one other person, and then the check that you saw is the second one from that person. And then there was an additional person.
So that person will be paid, this last person.
Well, yeah.
You're talking about now.
Well,
So
that person made an application consistent
Yeah.
with the rules
Yeah,
as
so
they.
we gotta sign the
exist at
check.
time, so,
Exactly.
We got to
yeah.
sign the check.
Yeah, so yes, it would be nice had the board known about the anomalies here, I guess, but from looking at the rules, it wasn't an anomaly, but anyway, now we've cleared it up going forward, thank goodness, so. Any other business to do here right now then?
Can I make a motion that we adjourn the CIC meeting for
Second.
I'll second that.
December the 9th, and it is 4:30. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.